Tonight's story takes us to London, England, the Highgate Vampire of the 1970s. But before we begin, turn the lights down low, settle back, and imagine London in the early 1970s. Not the bright, crowded London on postcards and all the tourists. No. But another London. A colder London. A city of fog, damp stone, flickering streetlights, and old cemeteries hidden behind black iron gates. And in the north of the city, there was a place people began to whisper about: Highgate Cemetery. By day, it was beautiful in the way only old cemeteries can be. Wild ivy crept over forgotten graves, angels leaning silently beneath the trees. Mausoleums stood like small houses for the dead. Stone crosses tilted in the earth, and narrow paths twisted through the darkness of overgrown branches. But by night, Highgate became something else. Something older. Something watchful. The air seemed heavier there. The trees, they seemed closer. And beyond the gates, among the Victorian tombs and broken statues, people began to say they had seen something moving. Not a person, not an animal. Rather, something tall, something dark, something that watched from between the graves. At first, they were only rumours. A figure seen at dusk, a shape moving through the fog, a shadow standing too still beneath the trees. People laughed at it. London was full of ghost stories. Every old building had one. Every graveyard had whispers. But then the stories became harder to ignore. A man walking near the cemetery one evening claimed he saw a tall figure standing behind the gates. It was dressed in all black, completely still. Its face was pale, but a little too pale. And although the street around him was cold and empty, he felt with absolute certainty that he was looking directly at him. So he stepped closer. Just one step. And the figure disappeared. Not walked away, not turned, not moved. It simply vanished into the mist. After that, other people began speaking, quietly at first. They said they had felt watched near the cemetery walls. They said they heard footsteps following them, even when the pavement behind them was empty. They said dogs refused to pass the gates after sunset. They even said the air around Highgate sometimes turned suddenly freezing cold, as though something had opened a door from another place. And then came the word that made the story famous: vampire. The Highgate Vampire. A creature said to haunt the cemetery, a dark presence that drifted between the tombs. A thing that had no place among the living, and yet would not stay with the dead. Some said it wore a long black coat. Some said it had burning eyes. Some said it floated above the ground. Others said it was only seen in glimpses, a shape at the edge of vision, a face behind a tree. a tall shadow crossing the path between the graves. But everyone who claimed to see it agreed on one thing. It did not feel human. And the strangest part was this. Highgate Cemetery already looked as though it belonged in a nightmare. Even before the rumours, even before the sightings, even before people began gathering there after dark. It was the perfect place to hide something terrible. The cemetery had been opened in the Victorian age, when people built for death with the same drama they built for royalty. Highgate was not just rows of graves. It was a city for the dead. There were winding avenues, Egyptian-style tombs, Gothic monuments, stone angels, iron railings, and family vaults sealed behind heavy doors. By the 1970s, part of it had become overgrown. Nature had begun reclaiming the dead. Roots cracked through the stone. Ivy wrapped around headstones. Trees grew thick and wild. And in the shadows beneath them, it was easy to imagine eyes watching. One winter evening, a young woman named Claire walked past the cemetery on her way home. She knew the rumours. Everybody knew the rumours. But she always dismissed them, People like to scare themselves. That's all it was. Fog gathered along the pavement as she walked, the kind of fog that softened street lamps into blurred yellow circles, the kind that swallowed footsteps. Highgate Cemetery rose beside her, dark behind its iron gates. She pulled her coat tighter and kept walking. Then she heard something, a slow scrape. Not behind her. Inside the cemetery. She stopped. The fog drifted between the railings. At first she saw only graves, crooked shapes in the dark. Then something moved, far back among the trees. A tall, black figure stepped slowly between two monuments. Claire froze, her breath caught in her throat. The figure stopped too. It was facing her. She could not see its face clearly, only the shape of it. Long, thin, still. Too still. Claire wanted to walk away. She told herself to just keep walking. But fear does strange things. Sometimes it makes you run. Sometimes it makes you freeze. And sometimes it makes you look longer than you should. The figure lifted one arm. Slowly, deliberately, as though beckoning her closer. Claire stepped back. Her heels slipped slightly on the damp pavement. And the next moment, the figure moved towards the gates. Not walking, but gliding. A smooth, silent movement that made her blood turn cold. Claire ran. She did not stop until she reached the bright lights of the main road. And when she finally looked back, Highgate Cemetery was gone behind the fog. But she could still feel it. The stare. That cold, patient stare. After that, she never walked that way again. Stories like hers spread quickly, and the more people talked, the stronger the legend became. Soon the cemetery was no longer just a place of burial. It was a place people came to watch, to search, to prove something, or perhaps just to be frightened. There were newspaper reports, there were interviews, there were claims about occult activity. People spoke of strange rituals, of damaged graves, of eerie lights moving among the tombs, of a dark entity that seemed to feed on the fear gathering around it. And the more attention Highgate received, the stranger the atmosphere became. At night, groups of people began arriving: curious teenagers, amateur ghost hunters, occult enthusiasts, people with flashlights and nervous laughter, people who said they did not believe in vampires, but they came anyway. Because disbelief feels easy in daylight. But Highgate at night was different. The cemetery seemed to absorb sound. A whisper could feel too loud. The snap of a twig could make a ground fall silent. And when the wind moved through the branches over the graves, it sounded almost like breathing. One night, a small group entered the cemetery after dark. 4 of them, 2 men and 2 women. They had heard the stories. They brought torches, a camera, and a flask of tea. They told themselves it was just a bit of fun, a dare, a story to tell later, perhaps. The gate was easier to enter than they had expected. That was the first thing that unsettled them. No struggle, no difficulty, as though the cemetery wanted them inside. The moment they stepped through, the air changed. The city sounds faded behind them. The traffic became distant. And then, silence. Inside Highgate, the fog seemed thicker. Their torch beams caught on the trunks, stone angels, and names carved into old graves. Names of people who had once lived entire lives there and were now only words in stone. They walked slowly, trying to laugh, trying to make jokes. But the jokes became fewer as they moved deeper in. There were paths, but they twisted strangely. Branches leaned low overhead. A statue of an angel appeared suddenly through the fog. Its face streaked with rain, its hands folded as though praying for something that had never been answered. One of the women, Sarah, stopped. "Did you hear that?" The others turned. Nothing. Only fog. Only trees. Only the dark shapes of graves. "What?" one of the men asked. Sarah listened. There it was again. A soft tapping sound. 3 taps. Somewhere ahead. Tap, tap, tap. They stood still. The sound stopped. Then it came again. Tap, tap, tap. From the left this time. They turned their torches toward it. Nothing. Just a row of old tombs. One of them laughed too loudly. Probably a branch. There was no wind. They continued. The path narrowed. The graves seemed closer now. The names on them harder to read. Some stones had cracked. Some had sunk into the earth. Some were covered in ivy. They looked less like memorials and more like something being swallowed. Then the temperature dropped. Suddenly, sharply, their breath appeared in white clouds. Sarah wrapped her arms around herself. This isn't funny anymore. That was when the camera flash went off by itself. A bright, white burst of light. Everybody jumped. The man holding it looked down at his camera. I didn't press anything. No one spoke. Then, from somewhere nearby, came the sound of footsteps. Slow footsteps on wet leaves. One, then another, then another. They turned into a circle, torches swinging wildly. The footsteps, they stopped whenever they stopped. Started whenever they moved. As though something was walking with them, beside them, just beyond the reach of the light. "Who's there?" one of the men shouted. His voice sounded wrong in the cemetery. Too small. Too fragile. The answer came as a whisper. Not from ahead. Not from behind. But from all around them. Leave. Sarah began to cry. They turned back toward the way they had come in. But the path looked different now. The gate should have been visible. It was not. Instead, there were only trees and graves and fog. Then one of the torches flickered. Then another. Beams dimmed. For a moment, the cemetery was almost completely dark. And in that darkness, they saw it. A shape standing beneath a tree. Tall, thin, draped in black, its face pale against the night. It was far away at first. Then the torches flickered again, and it was closer. No one screamed. Not at first. Fear had taken their voices. The figure did not move like a person. It seemed to slide through the fog, smooth and silent. The group ran. They ran blindly through the cemetery, branches tearing at their coats, stones catching their shoes, breath burning in their throats. Behind them, they heard nothing. No footsteps. No chase. And somehow, that was worse, because it meant the thing did not need to run. It was already where it wanted to be. At last, they saw the gate. Black iron against the fog. They stumbled through and out onto the street, shaking, breathless, terrified. Only when they reached the pavement did they realize Sarah was still holding the camera. Her hands were trembling. The camera had taken one photograph. Just one. Later, when they developed it, most of the picture was blurred. Dark trees, white mist, a crooked grave. But at the edge of the frame, half hidden behind a stone angel, stood a tall, black figure. Its face was pale. Its eyes were dark, and it appeared to be smiling. After that night, the group never returned, but the stories continued. Some people believed the Highgate Vampire was a ghost. Some said it was a demon. Some said it was an old entity awakened by attention, fear, and obsession. Others insisted it was nothing more than imagination, a legend fed by newspapers, darkness, and the eerie beauty of the cemetery itself. But there is something strange about places like Highgate. Some places seem to collect stories. They absorb them, hold them, even grow heavier with every whispered fear. And sometimes, after enough people believe a thing is real, it becomes hard to tell whether the place created the legend or the legend woke something sleeping inside that place. Years passed, the panic faded, the crowds stopped coming, the newspapers moved on. London changed. But Highgate, it remained. The cemetery still stands beneath its trees, still beautiful, still Gothic, still watching. And even now, there are people who say they feel strange being there after dark. A sudden coldness, a sense of being followed, a movement between the tombs, a shadow where no shadow should be. Maybe, just maybe, there was never a vampire. Maybe there was only fear, only fog, only old graves and overactive imaginations. But if you ever find yourself near Highgate Cemetery on a cold evening, when the sky is dark, when the lamps glow pale through the mist, and when the iron gate stands silent beside the road, do not look too long between the trees. Do not listen for footsteps. Do not answer if something whispers your name. And if you see a tall figure standing there among the graves, pale face turned toward you, black shape waiting beneath the branches, do not step closer, because some legends fade, some legends are forgotten, and some wait patiently in the dark for someone new to believe in them.